Did you know that there is a house in Nyack, New York that is legally declared as haunted? It is the only house in the world ruled by the court of law as a haunted home. Would you buy a house if you knew ghosts lived there?
That's fucked up.
This is the artist's house. This is Robert the Doll's home. It is located in Key West, Florida. This is where Robert lived all his life with Eugene until he was donated to the museum.
You should always lock your door.
Howard Street Cemetery. Along with the Burying Point Cemetery, the Howard Street Cemetery is one of Salem's most famous haunted cemeteries. The site where Giles Corey was flattened between two stones.
I think she heard me.
Having some fun. This girl, she really creeps me out. I don't know, like, there's something about her I just don't like. Okay.
I definitely think some of them weren't. Question everything. There's a lot more mysteries in this realm than they tell us.
This is the most haunted Walmart in America. It's in Galveston, Texas, and it was actually built on the site of the former St. Mary's Orphan Asylum, which was destroyed in the hurricane of 1900. There's actually a historical marker right near the Walmart that describes the story of this place. When the storm hit Galveston in 1900, the nuns attempted to save as many kids as possible, tied the children's wrists together with clothesline, and then tied the clothesline around the waists of the nuns. However, the hurricane hit harder than expected, and when people looked through the ruins of the orphanage afterwards, they found the bodies of all the children tied together, drowned, tied up to the nuns. Since this Walmart was built near the site of the original orphan asylum, many workers have claimed to have experienced paranormal activity inside. An employee at one point heard a girl crying for help, but when he looked for her, he couldn't find her. People have also reported seeing toys move by themselves in these aisles, and heard disembodied laughter. What do you think? Would you shop at this Walmart, or is it too spooky?
This hotel security camera footage actually caught a shadow figure running back and forth on camera. I'm gonna roll the clip right now.
Take a look.
Silent Hill is based off of a real town called Centralia, Pennsylvania, where a coal fire that still burns to this day evacuated hundreds of thousands of people from their homes.
I woke up in the middle of the night to hear my daughter talking to herself. As I went to tuck her back in, she told me that the creepy people behind me were scaring her. I calmed her down, I tucked her in, and I proceeded to call the only guy that could possibly put my mind at ease. I called my dad because he goes on ghost adventures and this is basically what he lives for. He brought over his SLS camera to see if we would see anything, and for an hour we didn't. Until we did. Just hanging out in my chair. Honestly, I was a pretty skeptical believer until this occurred, so I'm not trying to push you to believe or what not to believe. Some people think that spirits walk around us every day. Maybe they have unfinished business. Maybe there are guardian angels. Who knows? I just know that I'm not about to piss off whatever this is in my house.
For over a century, Stull Cemetery has been infamous for countless legends. It's been called the Cemetery of the Damned, the Seventh Gate of Hell, the Devil's Court, and more. But what is it about this small Kansas town cemetery that has spawned these legends? That's what we'll be getting into today here on Mystery Archives. Stull's history has always been a bit strange. Stull was founded by Pennsylvania and Dutch settlers headed out west to avoid religious persecution in 1857. They built an old stone church in the center of their cemetery to practice their Anabaptist religion. The church stood next to a large tree which was later inscribed with the words witch, leading some to speculate that witch trials were held there at some point. Beneath that very tree is a small grave. This grave is a resting place for the bones of Satan's child. Satan's child was said to be half wolf, half man, and kept in the basement of the old church where he was fed scraps of food which he consumed like a wild animal. One night when the child was about 10 years old, he broke out and went rampaging through the city. After an 11-month-long killing spree, he was finally brought down by a lone farmer. Another story goes that the child was born of a witch and Satan himself. He was so deformed that he only lived a few days. He was then buried beneath that tree in which his mother was later hanged from. And it's said that Satan visits the grave every spring and winter equinox to see both the mother and his son. Things only continue to get stranger from there. In the early 1900s, a boy was accidentally burned to death by his own father. Several days later, a man was found.
August 11th, just before 3:30 in the morning, the police department communications center got a call that they refer to as abandoned, meaning the other person hung up. So they called back, got an answer, and heard mostly static. An officer was sent out to check out the funeral home and cemetery and says it was locked up and dark with no one in sight.
According to Clifton Metter, who lived in Greenville in the 1930s and 40s, this train bridge here, across from the elementary school in Greenville, Alabama, has 12 demons living underneath it. Let's go check it out. Now, the hoodoo lady who told him this story explained that haints are ghosts and boogers are demons, and there were 12 boogers that lived underneath here, and they were really active in the winter at night. One even chased him once he crossed over the bridge and into the yard of the schoolhouse, and he said it was the most terrifying thing he had ever seen in his life. It had wings. Okay, so here's the other side underneath, and I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to go under the bridge really quickly. Should probably take more time here. Oh, goodness. All right, there we go.
Spearfinger is one of the most terrifying legends of the Cherokee people. Utlunta could take on any shape she wished, and her rightful form is an old woman. Her body is covered in skin as hard as a stone, and no weapon could penetrate it. On her right hand she had a long obsidian forefinger that she used to stab livers of her victims, usually children. It would cause no pain or leave no wound, but the person would surely die. She lived in the Blue Ridge Mountains at the bottom of the Appalachian Forest, and the Cherokee were always cautious of allowing a stranger to approach camp, or for one of their own to come up from the spring alone, in case it was Spearfinger wearing their skin.